Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, August 24th of 2025. Now this is about my fifth take on this video today. The second one I actually said August of 2024, and I was like, okay, maybe I should just let that one roll because the subject that I'm going to talk about today is the idea of doing hard stuff and how important it is in 2025. And maybe my brain was just kind of thinking, rolling itself back to a year ago and where my life was, because it feels like, well, I know for me for a fact that the world is shifting exponentially, personally, my business, my relationships, my friendships, all of the things that are happening in the world. I believe this is happening for all of us, but I really journaled a ton this week on how pivotal it has been for me to do hard stuff. Not just this past year, but probably the past 2 years have been, it almost feels like a whole decade has gone by for each year. And sometimes what I think is happening is there's so much going on and so much change so fast. It feels like it's only been a month, but it feels like it's been a year, or it feels like it's been sometimes 10 years, because you look at all of the things that are changing exponentially. We're no longer on a timeline when things happen slowly. So we have to make the things in our life that we want to slow down. We need to actually make that happen, and we know that. So I have some really great journaling thoughts that I'm going to share with you today. So this is what I wrote at the beginning of the week: doing hard stuff. And I underlined it several times because this has been, like I said, something that's been so important to see where I personally am, to see where the people in my life are, or maybe the people that are no longer in my life that are not there because of the hard stuff I've been doing, the internal work, the personal growth. And this is not being mean or uncompassionate or, just cutting people off rudely. It's not about any of that stuff. This is all about dialing in our own growth. And it's pretty clear, from my perspective, the people who are willing to do hard stuff. It's so clear now. So I wrote doing hard stuff. It seems extra important right now. And then what I wrote in big letters is for me, because I have no expectations of other people in my life, even the people I'm close to, of doing hard stuff for them. This is an individual thing. This is an individual journey. So I wrote, for me, this is it. And then I wrote this: I realized that other people, many other people, are having a very different experience than I am. Shatteringly so. I actually had a hard time spelling that. And then I also wrote startlingly so. Like, it's startling to me to watch the experience that other people are having that is so different than mine. But I realized that it's all right, because I think anyone that has been on a personal growth, personal journey, individual spiritual goal, plan and growth during their lifetime experiences this same thing. And it is certainly not about judgment or judging the way other people walk through the world either. And when that drops in, that's really beautiful. And that's why I wrote, for me, this is my own journey, my own what I like to consider ascension, not from an egotistical place, but from an awareness place, from such a beautiful awareness place. And when you start to go on this path and release your ego along the way, it's really pretty beautiful. But so then I realize many other people are having a very different experience than I am. It feels to me like there's a veil over their eyes, their ears, and their thoughts. And I find it hard to stay in the same room or even in the same conversation with them. And this is not out of hate at all. This is just out of an awareness, just a beingness. And I'm sure many of you can understand and relate to that 100%. So what it feels like to me is that the energy is off, the frequency is off. And I find that my level to be able to sit in that frequency my tolerance for it is extremely low. And that's what I wrote next. My tolerance for such low vibes is very low right now. I don't see it changing ever. And it is, like I said, it's not about a place of judgment or coming from an egotistical place. Oh, I can't be around you. Your vibe is too low. I mean, that is kind of the statement, but it's not about saying you are less than me at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because you get to give grace and compassion, right? I wrote that next. I just feel grateful. I just feel grateful that I get to be with this awareness in the times that we're in. So there are two big emotions that feel extra important for me right now as I continue to do hard stuff, the necessary things. These two emotions are calmness and compassion. Because as I am navigating my way through this, and it's such an individual journey, that I have come to realize that it really is a place where no one else can do this work but me. No one else can experience and get through these hard things except for me. But as I navigate through this and I have interactions and situations with all the other people that are in my life and in my sphere, I get to have calmness and compassion. And then what I wrote is this: with calmness, there comes clarity. And that is really, really important, because if you don't have clarity, there's rash decisions that get made. It's so important to get into calmness so that you can have clarity. So that's been probably the biggest thing for me, is as I've really had to do these super hard things, it's much easier to navigate it from a place of calmness. It's so incredible when you reach that. And then the second one, of course, is compassion. And to me, what that is plain old kindness. That's just kindness, right? So I feel like what's happening during this year is it feels like that things are speeding up exponentially. Like I said just a little bit earlier, this is not something that we can just mosey our way through, okay? There's progress in things like science, culture, and technology. The progress is not just, like when I was growing up, this shows you just how much I've watched happen, even in just technology and communication, is I grew up in rural Idaho where we had a party line. So our phone was shared by a few other neighbors. This was not a dedicated line. And of course, then we actually got our own line. But for a long time, we had a party line. And I've seen these things happen, and all the growth and all the changes to digital, to wireless, to all of that. It's now happening exponentially. It's not happening linear anymore. Okay, and this is not just in one area. This is science and culture and technology. These are happening fast. The old ways are starting to disappear almost, it feels like, overnight. Okay? And here's this thing. This is what we have to realize. And here's what I wrote. In this kind of environment that we find ourselves in, all the easy paths, the comfort, the convenient, and then what I wrote here is passive consumption. Okay? All of those things, they don't build much of anything. So when you're just going after comfort, which is what we want as humans, we're just after convenience, which, wow, there's convenience everywhere, right? And then passive consumption, wow, that one's crazy, because this covers everything: food, social media, technology, passive consumption, where we don't actually work for it. And it goes back to way a long time ago. Something that's coming back now and has for a long time now is raising our own food. Think about all the people now that have their own chickens, and they can go out and gather eggs, and you can have fresh eggs all the time. Well, there's some work and hard stuff that happens, and a learning curve and then there's a responsibility that comes with having your own animals that provide food for you. Same with having a garden. Okay, so it's really fascinating. Okay, so people are starting to not want passive consumption. Okay, what I think these are is they're just all distractions, right? It's distractions from helping us do the hard stuff, which is what helps us be a brilliant human that enjoys this experience a lot more. In fact, this actually reminds me of a movie that I watched last week. It's an old movie called After the Sunset, I think. And it's a kind of a thief, a diamond thief, caper, romantic comedy. And the thieves are a couple, and they decide that they're going to have their last heist, and then they're going to retire. And they end up retiring down at this beautiful beach, and he can't stop thinking about another heist he wants to do, and she is building this deck that they can enjoy the rest of their sunsets together. And she ends up building the deck and enjoying the first sunset on it without him. So it just felt like that was such a interesting movie to watch, because I found myself going back and wanting to watch movies that seemed to have a little more, I don't know if even depth is the right word, but just felt like movie making with a good message, right? And still an exciting movie to watch, especially if it's a diamond caper movie and there's love and all of that. So what we need to realize that all those things are just distractions, right? So what really shapes us as individuals, and not just individuals, but as a collective and as a society, is the willingness to do these hard things, no matter what it is, because we all have hard things. Maybe a hard thing might be really dialing in your health. Maybe you've gotten diagnosed with some really gnarly thing that is an accumulation of, okay, there might be a genetic piece, which we know is pretty tiny, but it might be an accumulation of not just toxins and lifestyle and stuff like that, but maybe there's emotional trauma that we need to clear out that's causing our body to be in disease, right? Or dis-ease. So I think that our willingness to do the hard stuff in 2025 is really what matters. That is where the gold is from my perspective. So this is why this matters more than ever, okay? It's mostly because we live in abundance. There's just abundance. There's abundant content, there's abundant opinions, there's abundant shortcuts. Everything is abundant. Now, there might be some places in the world where the abundance looks different, but for the most part, if you're listening to this, you're probably a person who has all of these things. You have access to abundant content, abundant opinions. Opinions abound, right? We're all entitled and allowed for opinions. It's not saying it's wrong. There's just an abundance of it. And there's an abundance of shortcuts. Think about DoorDash. Think about the drive-through. Thinking about, I think we're starting to realize that these simple pleasures, like, say, for example, brewing your own tea, or instead of driving through, or brewing your own coffee during the day, or in the morning instead of going through the drive-through and grabbing your coffee. We're starting to realize that some of these little simple things that are shortcuts really don't serve us. And they're not, it makes life lose its enjoyment when we don't slow down and do the hard stuff, because it's hard. So here's what I wrote about some of these other easy things. Think about this: scrolling just endlessly and mindlessly, okay? To me, what that really is that's a surface level dopamine hit. Every single time you just think, I'm tired, I just need to relax my mind, and we just dip in and open up. We're going to open up a reel, or check it in what our cousins are doing, or what's my mom posting on Facebook or whatever. We get caught there. Okay, and that's just mindless, but that's everywhere. There's so many platforms that you can suck into, and you can always convince yourself that what you're doing is okay. There's always a way to convince yourself. What we've actually done as a family is we have a couple of pretty big group texts going on. If there's, I have a nephew who has 2 little babies, and they're pregnant with their third, and their babies are little. They have a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, and when they have their next baby, the first of next year, they're going to be 3, 2, well, yeah, they're very little. But there's a beautiful group text that's going around that whenever beautiful things happen with these babies, which is almost daily and amazing, we get a text, but it's not something that's posted on social media, so we get caught there. There's such a big difference. And there's also a beautiful privacy aspect to that, where there's things that don't need to be shared with the whole world. And part of that, from my perspective, is respecting the privacy of these little babies and these kids who can't give their consent to have their life splashed across social media. Okay, that's just my own opinion. So all of these things, they don't require us to take courage or to become resilient. None of these things require courage. Now, they might require courage if you opt out of those. And I don't even know if it's courage. I just think you're basically breaking an addiction, right? So the hard things are what is really important, okay? So let's see. And mostly because they demand a lot more from us. They demand maybe something physical hard work. Maybe they demand learning something new so that you can improve, like getting your own chickens. Do you have the room for it? You just need to save up to get a chicken coop and to buy the chickens, and then you need to learn how to take care of your chickens and feed them the right feed, and harvest all the stuff, get the eggs and whatever. Getting the eggs is the easy part, right? So all of these things remind us to take risks. They remind us that life is uncertain, and they remind us that there's a possibility of failure, which I think we're coming out of this whole thing where it's like nobody can fail. We can't have any losers in a game or lose. It's so interesting. I think we are coming full circle there. So what happens when we do hard stuff is it does this. It heightens our creativity. It stretches our adaptability, okay? And it leaves us with wisdom. So we become creative, we become adaptable, and we gain wisdom. That's that's a beautiful progression. Being creative is the human way. We create so much. That's one of the biggest things that brings us joy. Whatever it is we're creating, whether it's music, poetry, art, a garden, creating children, creating good, responsible children, it does not matter. This actually reminds me of my mom, who had 11 children, raised 3 adopted, right along with us, and talk about the creativity that came out of this beautiful woman as she was raising us and keeping us, there was not the distractions of all the social media and all the technology. We never had a computer growing up, ever. I had my first computer when I got married and had my kids. I had already both my kids here before I got my first computer. So in a way, I feel like I was in a lucky generation. But I think about the pure genius creativity of my mom as she kept us busy. She kept us learning about how to take care of our stuff and how to take care of our bodies and how to be kind to each other and how to create art. My mom was a big artist, and she threw that love of creativity and artistic ability onto all of her children. And we all have different outlets for how we express our own art, but it's a big part of our lives. So the creativity that comes from doing and realizing that you want to do hard stuff is so good. And then we become adaptable, and then we gain wisdom. That's so perfect, right? So this is what I think. Easy is available to everyone. That's what I wrote. And then what I wrote is this. Doing something that's hard is what makes us different, is what makes life different. Easy is available to everyone. Everyone can take the easy path. But when we do something hard, that's what makes us different. And we all want to be different. We all want to kind of leave our mark. We want to leave our mark, but then, for me, it's like, it's interesting having a beautiful business that is such a very personal brand. I mean, I have a brand, that has my name all over it. And, I have sometimes people, will ask me, how do you, see your legacy moving forward? And, even after you die. And I really don't think about that a lot. It's interesting to me that I really don't think about that a lot. I mean, I would like to leave something that provides abundance and creativity and something that my children and grandchildren would maybe want to opt into when they get in a position to do that. But other than that, I know that when I die, my consciousness and my soul, my peace of God is off to the next adventure. And I want to help and serve as much as I can while I'm here. So, to me, that's what it is. But here's the thing. I think that all the simple stuff, it feels like it's a bit of an acceleration trap to me. Like we think, as if we know everything that's going on social media, or we learn as much as we can. I think it's good to learn about technology. I'm all about learning about technology. I think it's good. We're in a world where AI is going to be here. It's not going anywhere, and I think it's important to stay in that place. But to me, I think this is how it's always been. So this is, to me, one of the defining features of 2025 is that the world is speeding up, and it's accelerating. That's a defining feature. And if this is something you haven't noticed or paid attention to, then that makes me curious. But it also brings me back to what I originally wrote on the first page of my journal, which is I find myself being amazed or startled at people who are still, they just can't see it. They can't see the acceleration path. But I think it's clinging to the old, clinging to the certain, clinging to the safety, because that's what we want as humans, right? So what I wrote is this. Everything that's accelerating are these markets, cultures, technologies, and I think even our identities, the things that define us. We're accelerating. Things are fast. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. I'm saying that this is something that it needs to be in our awareness. And it probably is. If you're watching this, you probably already know that. So doing the hard stuff is not just about like gritting our way through it, okay? It's about what I like to call not just courage, but strategic courage. You can't just, grit your way through all of this stuff. You have to be strategic. That feels super important to me. And this is where those two words, the calmness and the compassion, really comes in, because you can be strategic. You can have strategic courage if you have calmness, because then you have clarity, and if you have compassion, because then you just stay in a place of kindness and love. That's really, really a powerful point, right? Strategic courage. So I think what needs to happen is we need to have courage without waiting for the map on how to do it. Okay, that's what I wrote down here. Don't wait for someone to point it out to you. So this is where you tune in. You're going to get all the answers from your higher self, and from the piece of you that is part of the divine. You're going to get all the answers you need while we go through these times. And this is not the time to go, well, I'm just going to hang over here and let everyone else do it, and I'll just jump on the coattails of those who are ascending. It might be easy to think that's the way to do it. Someone's going to come and I'm just going to jump aboard when I can see that that's where it's going. I think that there's going to reach a point where we're not going to have that honor. We're not going to have the pleasure of doing that, because we're going to get caught in the river and the acceleration path of the place and the timeline we don't want to be on. Okay, so the courage is to pause, to think, and to reflect. Okay, this is where it's going to take courage, because everything around us is kind of screaming at us, go faster, move faster, learn, do more, learn more, do the hard, do. And while action is all important, the courage is going to be in the stillness and the breath work and all of the stuff. That is where real courage is showing its face right now, from my perspective, from where I have come from, especially these last couple of years, where the hard stuff that I have been through as a human, talk about ego death, dark night of the soul, a realization of people, situations, and things that I should not have in my life anymore. Those are all hard things. And to get out the other end knowing that, okay, there might have been a lot of times that it took me longer to do something than it should have. Now the calmness and the clarity is there so that I can make a decision quicker on something hard, because I've given myself, first of all, grace on the things that I could have cleared up quicker, but also I think they all happen in divine timing, exactly how they're supposed to happen. Okay, So I think that individuals and different organizations, businesses, um, all the stuff, the schools, the government, all the institutions, okay, so individuals and all these different organizations, um, this is how we avoid being swept away by all the change. Okay, so that's how we avoid it, is by just having the courage to pause and think and reflect. I really love that because that does take courage. And, I refer back to, I said this a few months ago. I'd met a new friend who had just done a 10-day silent retreat. And that, talk about taking courage. And since then, she's done another 10-day silent retreat. So to me, that's amazing. And I know not all of us have the resources or the time to do that. If you're a mother of young kids, if you are the breadwinner, or if you are a person who holds down a job that supports your family, you might not be able to do that. And you might not want to take the vacation time you have, and instead of going and laying on a beach or going to Europe or going on a vacation, you might not want to spend your vacation in a silent retreat. So again, maybe this is where the courage comes in, to maybe journal on that, think about that, get still for a moment, reflect about it. Send up a prayer. Is this the right thing for the growth of my soul? I really never thought about that until I just thought about that. We need to be willing to sit with complexity, okay, instead of grasping at all the stuff that's easy. This is where it's like, we have to be willing to learn how to do something that is hard and sit with the complexity of it. Okay, when there's easy paths everywhere. Okay, kind of interesting, right? Okay, so here's what I'm finding. I find that if you look at history, progress has never come from chasing comfort. Okay, it comes from uncertainty, taking risks, and also what I think is really important is taking on challenges that other people avoid. This is how almost every person that has gotten successful in their life, if you look at it, even look at people who have stopped drinking alcohol or who never drank alcohol. They seem to be on a path that has more clarity than almost anyone who has gone down the path of alcohol being a part of their life. I mean, it's really fascinating. And I'm not saying everyone, and this is a journey of individuality for sure. But progress has never come from chasing comfort. Never has progress come from that. Okay? It comes from uncertainty, taking risks, and tackling the challenges that everyone else avoids. Okay? So our edge is going to be our willingness to wrestle with all the messy stuff and find meaning. Okay? And what I think is the hard stuff, and this is what I wrote, the hard stuff is what keeps us human. Okay? This is what keeps us human in a time that feels like everything's going to be automated. And we already know that there's going to be a big transition, like the Industrial Revolution. This is going to be an AI revolution, where a lot of the jobs that a lot of people hold are going to be automated. They're going to be gone. So this is where you take a massive action right now. If you are in a position where you have a job that's going to be automated, what is it that you would love to do that's creative, can bring you an income? And I believe that eventually, I don't think I will ever see this in my lifetime, but it would be amazing if it did, especially since the acceleration rate of where we're going is happening so fast. It's very possible that I could see a place where everyone has shelter, everyone has water, clean drinking water, clean air, clean food, clean energy, and there's abundance for everyone, and we're all living our creative best, doing hard stuff, but doing stuff that fills up our soul and adds to the collective, adds to what makes what's going to make my community thrive. What gifts do I bring? I mean, of course, that sounds like a beautiful panacea of just And I think it's possible. We need to first get a few really talented people who see this matrix grid and have them go strategically knock down this matrix, right? This grid that we're all under. So choosing hard things feels, choosing hard things like this, rebuilding the trust in the broken systems, rethinking our education, restoring balance to our relationship with the planet, with Mother Earth. We need to restore our relationship with the planet, right? And let's see. I think this is how we move forward to the future that I kind of just described, right? So the bottom line is this: doing hard stuff is no longer optional. I think if you want to accomplish what you're here to accomplish, doing the hard things are no longer optional. You can always take the easy way. That's always, I guess it is optional for you to, but from my perspective, from what I want to accomplish and what I want to do, doing hard stuff is no longer optional. Okay? I think it's the only way to stay relevant, resilient, strong, and here's the kicker: distinctly human. This is how we stay distinctly human as everything else accelerates. And we can take the good, and we can participate and stay informed, and all the stuff that's going to happen around us as we move through this next 5 years. I think it's going to be really fascinating. I think even before the end of this year, I'm being patient because I know it's like a good thing to do. But if you really think about what is the world going to look like, what is going to happen, what's going to be revealed, where are we going to be by the time this year is over? That's only 4 short months away from the date I'm recording this. 4 months and 1 week. Then the world is going to look very, very different. So while there might be an anxiousness, what is it going to look like by the end of 25? What's it going to look like by the end of 26, or by the end of 2030? So this is where it's like, while you are participating, now's the time to do the hard stuff, right? Okay, so that to me is the bottom line, because you want to stay distinctly human. So I have some questions, which is really super fun, because I love coming up with these questions after I have my thoughts on a subject that drops in at the first of the week, and the importance and the relevance of doing hard stuff right now is I come at this from deep personal experience and what I'm deeply going through right now that is hard. I come on here every week and I talk about plants and plant medicine on Thursdays, and then I come on here, but I have hard stuff I am navigating through right now, and I don't feel overwhelmed by it because of those 2 words I mentioned: the calmness, which brings clarity, and the compassion, which brings kindness. So bring it on, because I feel like I'm in a better place than I ever have been in my whole life. And I got some hard stuff happening, which is good. So here are some questions. Are you building something that matters, or just distracting yourself with busy work that feels safe? Okay. These are questions that I would highly recommend that you maybe sit and journal on this week, because I think this will bring some moments of clarity for you. What's the lie you keep telling yourself to avoid doing the one hard thing you know would change everything? That is something I'm in the middle of right now. This one hard thing. And I know I have other hard things. I have one really hard thing I'm navigating right now. And I know that this one hard thing that I do, and if I bring calmness and compassion to it, which is 100% on board, which is so beautiful in my heart, it lands and it's so great. It changes everything. Everything. Once I get to the top of this mountain, and I know there's other mountains, I get to the top, like it's like climbing a mountain. There's a beautiful mountain in the Wasatch that I've only climbed once. It sits in the middle of the Wasatch mountain range. It's called Mount Raymond. And I hiked this one time with a friend. And we start on one trailhead and we hike. It's a big, long hike, and you reach the peak. And there was no one else on this peak with us. But you reach the peak, and the view from there is all the other mountains. Like you're literally sitting in the middle of a mountain range or standing, and then you come down the other side of the mountain and end up at a different trailhead, and you navigate your way home from there. But the thing is these mountains that we climb, like I know that this is going to change everything. So this is like a really cool way to look at it. So then if tomorrow all the easy, comfortable options disappeared, okay, what's left of your life that you've built? That is an important question. If all of the easy stuff, all the conveniences, like look at the food thing. Are you completely dependent on driving through fast food, having DoorDash, having something delivered, going out to eat? Like, are you is that your life? And I'm not judging it, but I'm just saying, if all the easy, comfortable options disappeared, what's left of your life that you've built? That's a great question. Are you addicted to convenience because it keeps you from confronting who you could actually become? Enough said, right? When was the last time you truly failed at something hard? Or have you been playing life too small to even risk it? You have to be willing to fail. It's always failing forward. To me, failing is not even a failure. It's just you tried something and that way didn't work. So you get to try something else, and then maybe that way doesn't work. We all hear stories about this all the time. 28 years ago, I built a health club. I started a business with one of my sisters, and it failed spectacularly. It was grand, all the stuff we did, and it was hard, and it failed on all, but the sister I did it with, we managed to stay close friends through that, and we are still close friends to this date. And I've gone on to create a successful business, and she's had several businesses that have been successful too. So you have to be willing to fail, okay? So I'm going to read that one again. When was the last time you truly failed at something hard? It might even be something like your physical fitness. Maybe you got all determined in January to join a gym, and you joined the gym and you worked out for 3 weeks, and then you're like, this is just too hard. I'm going to take a week off, and then I'll pick back up in February. I used to own a gym. I used to do personal training. My first career for 20 years was fitness. I saw that over and over and over. And that is such a perfect classic example of doing something hard and then allowing yourself to fail and then jump back and do it again. Like the person who succeeds in their fitness is the person who fails at their goals and they jump back on and do it again. And then they fail again and they jump back on and they do it again. Eventually you are going to succeed, okay? So then the next question. If the world collapsed tomorrow, would your skills, values, and mindset make you someone others would turn to or someone who panics? These are not easy to ask yourself questions, and I wrote them out like this on purpose because I wanted them to make you think, okay? So now here's the last couple questions are a little bit more reflective, okay? What's one hard challenge you've taken on that shaped you more than any easy win ever could have? So give yourself some props here. Like, what's one hard thing that you have tackled that you can say is more than just an easy win? And my health club thing, and I've had other things too that I have failed miserably at. If you deliberately choose one difficult thing to commit to in 2025, we have 4 months and 1 week from when this video is. If you could deliberately choose one difficult thing to commit to in 2025, what would it be? And then ask yourself the big question, why? Okay? What role do hard things play in helping you grow beyond the person you were last year? Oh my gosh, this filled up like 6 pages for me because I wrote these out and then I journaled them. Okay? What role do hard things play in helping you grow beyond the person you were last year? We don't really have the luxury to change who we are. in 10 years? Let's speed up our goals. Let's speed up. In fact, I can't remember which book it is that my nephew wrote. Benjamin Hardy wrote a book about achieving a 5-year goal in 6 months. I think it might be 10x is easier than 2x. I'm not sure. I'm going to find it. I'll put it below this video if I can find it before I drop this video. But think about that. So what role do hard things play in helping you grow beyond the person you were last year? That is such a massive question, okay? What problem in the world feels so important to you that you'd keep working on it even if it never gets fully solved? Okay? This might be a really easy question to answer. For me, that was an easy question to answer. What problem in the world feels so important to you that you'd keep working on it even if it never gets fully solved? The reason this is easy for me is this. This is me helping turn people back to the power of Mother Nature and plant medicine. I know that there's going to be millions of people still turning to pharmaceuticals first. I know that. And I know there's absolutely no way in my lifetime that this is going to be fully solved by any stretch of the imagination. But this is what I do every single day. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard with the things that that come at me. And then there's brilliant times when some of the feedback I get and some of the amazing things that it's like, it makes the hard stuff easy. Okay, and then this, who inspires you most because they've chosen the hard path, and what can you learn from them? I think it's always beautiful to turn to mentors and examples. There are so many things that we can tune into and watch and listen to with all the content that's available to us. The books, the podcasts, the audiobooks, all the videos. We need to be strategic in who we turn to and who we let inspire us. Is it just mindless stuff? Is it stuff that doesn't, the reality stuff and the political stuff is, so who do you turn to that's inspiring? And then this final question, what's one area in your life where you know the harder road is the better one? And how might you take the first step today? So that's my challenge to you, is that last question. What is one area in your life where you know the harder road is the better one? And how might you take the first step today? So that is where I'm going to leave it. Let's see, we've got 42 minutes. Okay, so I would love to hear what you think about this. This is a big topic because before we know it, we are going to be at the end of 2025. And this is a year, if you've been paying attention to what's been happening in the world, a lot of hard stuff. A lot of stuff is happening in the world every single day. Multiple things in one day. Things that used to happen and the world would talk about for the next 10 years are now happening every week. We don't have time to really process it fully sometimes because so much is happening so fast. So this is your time to do the hard stuff. And let me bring back in my two beautiful words. Calmness, which will bring you clarity, and compassion, which will bring you not just kindness, but it will bring you unconditional love. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I love you guys so much, and we will see you next month.